always be coming back to the same type of system. And of course, for new people who are joining us as well, making sure that they are, seeing the way we're looking at stuff today. So our enduring understanding for today is we are coming from the belief system that our culture exerts a powerful influence on our parenting. The way we were raised affects how we raise our children in some way, shape, or form. Maybe there were negative experiences that we had that we decided not to do once we became parents. Maybe there were positive experiences that we have that we say we want to emulate once we became parents. Bottom line is that how we were raised affects how we raise our children. And we're starting from that point of departure. Wherever you see that enduring understanding, that's our point of departure. That's where we're starting from. So we have 3 questions that we want to ask. And in these essential questions, the first one is, and again, when we ask these questions, we ask them in order because they always start with you. They don't start with your children. If you're a teacher, I know some of y'all are parents and teachers, it doesn't start with your students, it starts with you. So the first question that we want to ask is, how do awareness, knowledge, and understanding of world events affect our interaction with our children? The things that you know, the things that you see, are there things that you choose to not speak on with your children because you don't know about them? You choose not to speak on them because there's too much emotion that is attached to them. How does that affect how you interact with your children? The second question we want to look at is, how do awareness, knowledge, and understanding of what our children know about the world affect our interactions with our children? And what I mean by that, which we'll look at a little bit later, is our children are often exposed to more diversity than many parents out there. Now, if you're the type of parent that lives in a diverse setting and that doesn't apply to you, but just by the fact that we choose to send our kids to schools that have people from different neighborhoods that don't live in your neighborhood, WES has parents from all parts of the area, the DMV. So they get exposed to more diversity early on than you might be. So they may come home with ideas and thoughts about things that you have yet to be exposed to yet. So in some ways, your children can be the teachers of us if we let that happen. And then the last question is, how can parents establish learning environments where courageous conversations are welcome? There's so many times where, we as parents shut down conversations because of our ignorance on a particular issue, our level of discomfort, because we got to jump on a conference call, we got to go to work and so on and so forth. And there's so many things, but we're losing opportunities to have these real conversations. And one of the things I wrote in one of my motivational blogs right now is that I know that all of us are dealing with our challenges right now in terms of being home with our children. And one of the things I tried to say in one of my blogs was that, rather than us saying we have to be home with our kids, how would our mindset shift a little bit if we said, we get to spend time with our kids? So by the end of the session, we want to examine, have examined how societal perceptions influence our thought patterns as well as those of our children. We want to have identified parental behaviors, practices, and processes that help or hurt our children's perceptions of others. And we want to have started to build the capacity to develop an environment that supports courageous conversations in our homes. Those are the things that we're looking at accomplishing today. So we looked at this in our last meeting that we had, and I want to come back to that. There are certain slides that are going to be repeats that we looked at because it's a continuum of what we've been talking about. These are just some of the challenges that your children are facing today, things that they are seeing every single day, depending on where they are. And it's so easy for us to not see this, to not pay attention to these things that are going on. We got issues with hate crimes that are going on. Look at what's happening with the Asian community right now with the COVID crisis. We're gonna get to that later. If your children have social media accounts, I've spoken to schools where elementary school students have social media accounts. I'm talking 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. Just, I don't know, but it's there, so, and if you're not monitoring their social media, there's a whole bunch of things that you're not seeing. Obviously, issues relating to mental health, depression, and suicide, that's on the rise. And some studies have come out. ABC put out a study that ties some of that depression to social media. And if you think about it, some of it could kind of make sense. right? And remember, if you join, just mute your microphone and feel free to hop in at any point. You know, one of my friends once told me that people nowadays are more depressed than they were during the Great Depression. And one of the reasons is that during the Great Depression, people were poor and living in poverty in their pockets. They weren't seeing how the other side is living broadcast. You know, there wasn't like Lifestyles That Are Rich and Famous, where every single day you could be confronted with what you don't have. And, you know, and our kids are also experiencing that as it relates to Instagram, where they're seeing people with these crop photos, you know, looking their best, you know, no pimples or none of that, you know, seeing people's mansions and all of that. And if you don't have those things, that can bother you. Of course, as you all know, there are the academic rigors that our children are dealing with, bullying, any type of ism you want to add in that. You know, there could be issues going on in the home with parents that are affecting the children, whether it's, you know, relationship issues, job status issues. The kids are also seeing that the world is becoming more globalized. And, you know, we've had another session where we talked about raising global citizens. Are they being prepared to do that? When I talk about media issues, what are the things that they're seeing in the media on a daily basis? You know, right now, for example, news shows, or particularly the cable news networks, are airing, you know, the death count. It's like just from the COVID, right next to their broadcast. It's almost like Vietnam, you know what I'm saying? It's like where you know, success was measured in who had the bigger body count. And it's like, does a 4-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, 11-year-old need to walk in and see a TV screen and the first thing they see is, you know, number of deaths from a disease? It's like, these are the types of things that they have to deal with. Historical knowledge and guidance. A lot of our kids are being raised without context. So there's a lot of stuff going on that they don't understand. You know, take conversations about the quote unquote, you know, N-word, right? You just saw a guy from NASCAR get fired for using that terminology, right? They don't know, but they're using language that they don't know because we haven't taught them the history. Obviously, there are issues of identity as relates to sexuality. These kids are being called the school shooting generation. That's something that could be on their minds. I love when I had a conversation with the WES 8th grade students, and I believe it was just the 8th grade boys, and I never forget what they said, because I really appreciated it. You know, one of the things that they said, that at WES, you know, they feel safe. And, you know, I've been down in Florida speaking in schools after, you know, the Orlando, you know, nightclub shooting, and after the high school shooting that happened down there, and to see those teachers and the students just shook and everything. Like, that's not something, you know, I felt at WES, and I think that's been really great. Body image, we talked about technology. They got more access to it than we do. Critical thinking is a major problem. Are we teaching our kids to think critically? Because if we're teaching them to think critically, when their friend says, oh, you shouldn't hang out with Chinese people right now, they can process that, as opposed to just saying, well, he's really an influencer in my group, so I'm just gonna believe him. Are we teaching our kids to parse out information, to analyze different things? And obviously this is more of an issue as kids get older, you know, middle school approaching to high school, but you can start at any age getting kids to think about things. You know, if you ask them, is it sunny outside? Well, why is it sunny? You know, just getting them having those conversations. You can do that at very young ages as well. Career pressures. A lot of kids are thinking about their lives. Like, I've talked to 6th and 7th graders who are talking about when they're going to get married and like have a career. And I wasn't like that in the 6th grade, like for real. But I don't know. These kids are they're in a different space right now. And then, of course, there are challenges as it relates to being busy and kids feeling like they don't have time for them. And again, these are just some of the issues. I could probably double it up. But if you look at all of these things, where do you feel your child would fit into there as it relates to something they might be dealing with? Because there can also be things that you don't even know that they're dealing with. So we talked about this. We come back to this in every session, understanding when we're talking about diversity, that diversity takes many forms, and just always being mindful of that. Today, we're going to look at some things relating to racism that people within the Asian community are facing when we go to some of our examples and conversations later. But there's all types of issues that people are facing right now. And there's always room for one more. That's why that pie is always empty. So let's jump into that.